Done in preparation for today. We've got next Sunday, which would be uh, Palm Sunday, and then Sunday after that would be Easter. Easter, we will not be in class. We're not going to be here. We're going to be meeting. I'm going to be meeting that little stormtrooper and his mom and daddy and his brother Tanya will be up in Pigeon Forge with them on Easter, and so anyway, I was looking at and just had been thinking to get ahead of things, and already have something in mind for next Sunday, thinking about Easter, even though it's Palm Sunday. But if you look at the various different timelines that for the Holy Week, Passion Week, as you're thinking, and there was a lot of things that took place, a lot of things that happened. Just to walk through here to see, you see the things that was going on beginning on Palm Sunday. Jesus weeps over Jerusalem. He looks around the temple, returns to Bethany. Then you could follow the timeline there on the chart, and then look at the different other things that's going on. He gives a lesson about the fig tree. The religious leaders challenge his authority. Jesus is questioned about paying taxes, and the Sadducees question Jesus about the resurrection, all the way through. The week is packed full of things. He talks about his return at the end. He predicts his crucifixion in 2 days, and you see this timeline is being played out. And when we look at what Jesus had done, and I like to think of things in the context of God directing our lives. Jesus was our example on how God directed his life. Been thinking about his prayer life. He's all the different things that are taking place here. And I'll stop right there. There's more that goes on beyond there. I'll stop at that point right there for now. But I thought about when Jesus was in the garden, and I thought about his prayer life, and I've been thinking about how he prayed and the prayers that he did pray. And I thought, well, this week we, as you pray for the various needs, and Tara gets to come home. You're asking the Lord. You're talking to the Lord. You're talking to the Lord. And then my daughter, I called her. There's something we've been talking about, something she's been praying about. We've all been praying about in the family, and she said they got in the van. She's going to take Aiden to school. She's got the little one there and puts him in his seat. Aiden gets in his seat, and Aiden had been asking for a knife for his birthday. He had been asking for a long time. He had seen Papa with a knife, and he wants a knife. And so I don't know that his daddy carries one, but I do. And so we've kind of kept that away from him. I want a knife, Mom. I want a knife. It's my birthday's coming up. I like to have a knife. I like to have a knife. Knife. And she was just wearing him out, or he was just wearing her out about the knife thing. And she got to thinking. She said, I know when the Lord is trying to talk to me. She said, Aiden, I know you want a knife. I haven't forgotten that you want a knife. And the first time we talked about it, I know you want a knife. You'll get that knife in due season, in the right time. Your birthday's coming up. You don't have to keep asking me about this. I've already got it up. We're going to get you one. We're going to order one, and it'll come, and you'll get it. And then I'm, of course, in that context, I said, yeah, I get it, but we as humans, we don't know anything else better but to ask. We ask. And then as I was meditating on that, and Jesus being in the garden, and here he is with these disciples, and as he's in the garden with disciples, when he goes to pray, He takes them in there. There's 3 of them. He takes a little closer with him. He was in agony. He was in deep agony. And as he goes to pray, he gets to the point where he says, Father, let this cup pass from me. If not, your will be done. Now, we only have a small glimpse of what he went through during that time, but how much did he pepper the Father with repetition? How much did he just, are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
One time.
I think it's all we have is a record of one time. And so I began to think even more about how did Jesus pray. If you go back in scriptures leading up to this point, leading up to here, and how often did he pray? What was his prayer life like? Because we want to model ourselves after the Lord in him spending time to pray, going and spending time to pray. Well, what did he talk about? Well, we know he prayed for his friends. We know that he told Peter, he said, Satan would like to sift you like wheat, but I prayed for you. In other words, it's done. I prayed. It's already in the bank. It's taken care of. You got to go through some things, but I prayed for you. And then as I was thinking about all that, and that's something that's still on my mind. And then as we look at the life of Jesus, and we look at that week, and we go back and we look at the various events that are taking place, these things didn't happen just out of happenstance. God directs our steps. We ask the Lord to direct our steps. He directs our steps. And so, in all of this, and if you go to, and hold your place there in John 12, and if you go back to John chapter 20, and you look at verse 31, as what John is writing in the book here, in this gospel, he says, but these things are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in his name. All these things that they wrote down, God is directing all of this. Fortunately, we have a record of it, and it's something that can lead us in our faith. We can learn from, and we can pick up on. And so when I think about all that, and I'm thinking about what's coming up the next 2 weeks, and we celebrate Easter, it's a time of celebration, the resurrection of our Lord, and each and every day we have the confidence of knowing that Christ has been risen. We feel that, we experience that, we talk to the Lord, and he walks us through things each and every day. He's a constant presence in our life. When I was looking at this, and of course I'm all over the map. I know, where's he going with this? Well, hang on, hopefully we'll land this plane or get on a more better trajectory in just a moment. Here in chapter 12, as we're looking at all this, Jesus is laying down, teaching. He knows where he's going. He knows where this is headed. And he's using these events to make an imprint upon the life of his disciples and others. And in chapter 12, we look what's going on in chapter 12. In chapter 11, Lazarus has been called forth from the grave. He's alive and well. In chapter 12, we read about how that before Jesus goes into Jerusalem riding on the donkey, it says in verse 1, reading from there, it says, then 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus, who had been dead, whom he had raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served, but Lazarus was one of those who sat at the table with him. Then Mary took a pound of very costly oil of spikenard, anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the oil. But one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, who would betray him, said, why was this fragrant oil not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief and had the money box, and he used to take what was put in it. But Jesus said, let her alone. She has kept this for the day of my burial. For the poor you have with you always, but me you do not have always. Continue on to read. Now, a great many of the Jews knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake, but they might also see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death also, because on account of him many of the Jews went away and believed in Jesus. That's interesting how they came to see, and now they're beginning to believe. And then as we're reading the story, and as I'm following through and thinking about what's coming up, what is going on, I'm just trying to take it all in. And it just, for some reason, I've read this many times as you have. I went back there and I thought, but the chief priests plotted to put Lazarus to death. Wouldn't it be just alarming for you to know that the administration of the North Cleveland Church of God was sitting up in a room up there and thinking of some of the members that was really causing them problems? How can we kill them? Priests talking about having somebody killed because of the witness. It's just, it don't go together. Priest killing somebody, it just does not go together. And so the weight of that, I don't think we really kind of grasp what's going on here completely. We're so far removed. But anyway, I was just caught up with that. And here you have Lazarus, and John writes, these things were written so that you might believe on Jesus, that he is the Christ. And as we're looking this, and then everything begins to take place. Jesus, the week is laid out for him. As we're looking at chapter 12, and we go on down, you have the triumphal entry. Let me back this up there to where he's coming in there. Jesus predicting his death on the cross. They're not getting it. They're not capturing it. They're just not getting it. And then as we come on down through the rest of that chapter, let's see here. Yeah, in verse 37, it says, But although he had done so many signs before them, they did not believe in him. That the word of Isaiah, the prophet, might be fulfilled, which he spoke, Lord, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Verse 39, therefore they could not believe, because Isaiah said again, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, lest they should see with their eyes, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. These things Isaiah said when he saw his glory and spoke of him. And then you continue on here in verse 42. Nevertheless, even among the rulers, many believed in him. But because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him. They are secret followers. And if you go back to, and I skipped over this, didn't mean to, verse 19, the Pharisees therefore said among themselves, you see that you are accomplishing nothing. Look, the world has gone after him. The use of the word cosmos there for world, in this case, is not pointing to the world in the sense of the celestial part, but it's referring to all humanity. And so we see the struggle and the push and the tug. I want to believe, but I don't want to be identified and caught in a position where the Pharisees are going to be, man, they were dancing. There was a fine line that people were trying to do. A fine line. And as they're being challenged, Jesus is knowing where this is all going. He knows all the time where this is headed. And it's making a huge impact upon his disciples, yet we still know that their inability to capture, everyone's inability to capture, where is he going with all this. It's an interesting week. There's a lot to take in for the Holy Week that's coming up, the Passion Week, if you will. And so where I'm headed with it, in my mind, is to take time and not jump right straight to, not just look at Palm Sunday and you deal with that one event, all these things that are leading up to what's taking place. Yes, Ron.
At Jesus' birth, there's a lot of talk. And there's this phrase that we use about his birth, when the time was right. Maybe we can apply that to his crucifixion.
Yeah.
Because all the people coming in for the Passover, and the history, the Jewish leaders' history at that time, they had gotten more and more and more and more powerful.
Yeah.
For hundreds of years leading up to that.
Yeah.
So maybe that, when the time was right, means as much about his death as when he was born.
Yeah.
Look at all the stuff that was happening right there.
Oh, yeah.
In a week, it makes you wonder if anybody had time to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think about that when they went to the garden, and the disciples were nodding off.
What was Jesus' prayer? It was agonizing. I think he only approached the Father the one time, I think. I may be wrong about letting the cup pass from him. But something was so heavy on him.
Yeah.
That, he went to pray, he came back, found him asleep, and he went back to pray again. And what do we surmise that he was praying for? Was he praying for those disciples that he had tried to train all this time, and now they're nodding off and not paying any attention, not standing watch?
I think there was a lot going on with what was agonizing, because he knows where this is headed. The divinity part of him knows where it's going. The man knows where it's going too. But when he looks to Judas, and says, "That which you do, do quickly," it's on.
But I think he had accepted the part that he was going to die.
I think he may have, but I think the humanity part side of him is, this is getting real now.
The suffering.
This is getting real. This has really come down to it. I don't think he had a problem going in his mind and his resolve to where he's going to go. I think it's
just dreading
we
it.
know, I'd say we know certain things are coming up in life, and we dread those things. Just the thought of some things can wreak havoc on us. Knowing we got to contend with this, we got to deal with this.
But at the same time, it happens in my life, something that, and it may not happen in yours, but it happens in my life, that there comes a time of acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
You know it's going to happen, so you accept it. It's not easy to do, but once you've accepted it, it's almost like,
It's a relief.
yeah.
But who in this room knows how they're going to die?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We don't know that. Isaiah called him a man of sorrows. Anybody that knows how they're gonna die, that has to weigh on you a lot.
oh, yeah,
That's the thing that we all dread. That's the human nature part of us, is we don't wanna die. And nobody here knows that, and God mercifully keeps that from us. I've known a few people, I can count on one hand, that knew they were gonna die and when, and it was right close to the time. I had an old man tell me one winter, he said, it's getting harder to get down the road to my mailbox. I said, you need to move your mailbox closer, because he had a long driveway. And he cut his eyes up, he said, no, he wouldn't have that, I won't be here next winter, and he wasn't. Very few people.
yeah. And not to mention, you know what the sin of the world is that's gonna be laid upon you. Yes, Brother Al?
I know how much I react to a paper cut or a splinter. Any pain. We go in, we don't want needles sticking in us unless they're gonna give us a Novocaine or something so we don't feel it. Jesus knew his body was going to be torn head to toe. To face being shot and killed, or electrocuted and killed, we know it's not going to last long. We're going to go through it. But he's going to be shredded and shamed, humiliated, the most awful death that they could devise. I think he dreaded that because all the pain they could inflict on him, they did.
And wasn't maybe the worst was when he knew his father had to turn his back on him.
Yeah.
I think that was maybe the worst.
And when the father couldn't even look because it was so horrible, and knowing what he's going through. And he knew, Jesus knew, they are going to humiliate him, they're going to shred him, they're going to make him as miserable and as embarrassed as they can possibly do. He knew. We can't stand the slightest embarrassment, and they stripped him nude before the public. It was unbelievably mean and cruel, and the challenge for us to try and grasp that, but he knew what was coming.
And those closest to him denied him too. I mean, it was every kind of pain, every kind of pain.
Yeah, yes. Good points all the way around. The one thing that goes through my mind, I want to squeeze in all I can in taking in what was going on that week. And as I'm walking through my daily life, Lord, help me not to be a disciple that is so dumb that I can't get what you're trying to communicate to me. Help me not to miss what's going on. Those disciples were missing some things. Again, not just the disciples, but everyone. He's a Messiah to come. He's here. He's not going to leave us. He's going to be here. This is it. There's nowhere. He's not going anywhere. They did not see. They could not see. Lord, help me not to be so stuck in a particular mindset that I miss a truth, your truth. And Tanya and I, we've had this talk often about people saying, well, that's my truth. Well, that's my truth, you know. And it grinds me to no end. If your truth is not his truth, then you don't have much of a truth at all. I think we saw somebody giving a testimony about a crime had been committed, and they were on the stand and having to account for their and they kept saying, well, this is my truth. What was that famous saying you made, darling? If your truth isn't his truth, then it's not the truth. Something on that. I may have messed up her own quote. I said, we need to write that down, darling. And so, anyway, yes, but let me, Lord, line up with your word. Help me to be in you in such a way that my life lines up to you, and you can help me help me in the process, and hopefully to capture all these wonderful moments that you have, that you're trying to reveal yourself. Yes, Brother Al.
I don't know if we give enough time in our thoughts to what Jesus experienced also of false accusation, and that he carried the sins of everybody. If you've ever been falsely accused of anything, you know it's painful.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's kind of hard to defend yourself. But Jesus carried everybody's sin. And I think when that sin was placed on him, and he sensed his Father turn his gaze away from it because it was so horrible. All of the meanness, the evil that's ever been done from Adam until now with us. He carried it all. That's hard to even conceive, but I think we get a little taste of it if you've ever been falsely accused of something that you didn't do. And here Jesus was the perfect man, the innocent one, and he's carrying the accusation and the reality of everybody's sin for all time. And he's going to take the punishment for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can even begin to grasp both the physical pain and the emotional pain of what he took.
Yeah. And he presses on. If we go to verse 42 and read to the end there, and of course it ends up with Jesus, his words. Verse 42, reading on, it says, "Nevertheless, even among the rulers many believed in him, but because of the Pharisees they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue. For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. Then Jesus cried out and said, He who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And he who sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. And if anyone hears my words and does not believe, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me and does not receive my words has that which judges him. The word that I have spoken will judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore, whatever I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak. Lord, may I hear your word. May I feel the moving of your Spirit. May I be able to react and live in the light and not dwell in the darkness. Not desire the praise of men rather than the praise of God, but to walk where you lead me and where you have, and to be sensitive enough to hear your voice to know where I should go. There are weeks we don't know what's coming up. There are weeks that are coming that we think we know what's going on. Life has a way of always having some kind of surprise that comes our way. But Lord, give me the grace just to get through today, and the week will take care of itself.
You're all set up for the fast bar. Here comes the curtain.
Yeah. Anyway, this is as far as I wanted to go today. I just wanted to, it was a lot of different thoughts that was running through my mind, a lot of different things. And it was hard to stay on track because there was so much that I was trying to chew on and everything. And so anyway, any other responses or comments? Yes, Brother Al.
You know, this is such an important subject because it's the basis of our salvation. Jesus also understood, had in mind that he was dying with everybody's sins on him. the 22nd Psalm helps us to get a little bit of the grasp of the way to that. For us to have a bad reputation means we carry the stories being passed around about something we did, whether it was intentional or not, but it was wrong. And Jesus is innocent, never has done anything wrong, nothing. And yet the sins of all the people who lived up until that time, and from then up till our time, every sin placed on him. That's an indescribable pain. I don't think any of us can grasp it.
No.
Just know that it happened. So the physical tearing, the false accusing, the sins of everybody placed on him, and even his father happened to live away. It's massive.
Yeah, based on what we know about what had happened to him on the scourging, it's a wonder he even made it to the cross. I think if we could really, really see what that was like, it was the divinity that carried the man to the cross.
And that on the cross he can give salvation to receive.
Doesn't the Bible say he was marred beyond the recognition and beyond anything any man had ever seen before?
Yeah, basically, yeah. That's not King James at all, but,
Does it- it's the word.
What you just said though about him,
his vision was marred more than any other man.
Yes.
Yeah.
what you said about his divinity was superhuman, sheer strength
Yeah.
that enabled him to go that distance, because mere men, most of us, very few of us could handle that kind of physical pain. But then he also had the ability to shorten his life. Once it was done, he died in 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I heard this on some religious broadcasting program, that somebody one time lived 8 or 9 days. So his will, his divinity, made sure that he made it there, but he also had enough control, even at that point, to end it at the time it's supposed to be over, to get him in the ground quick enough to fulfill more prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his control was limitless. The divinity part of him was limitless on his control
Yeah.
over all situations, even when he died.
Good
Because
point.
people, I know some people that wish they could die. Their body is done, they know it. My dad looked at me one time, he said, "I'm done with this one, I'm ready for the next one."
Yeah.
That's hard to hear,
Yeah.
but he didn't have control over that. Jesus even had that control.
I had a cousin that had ALS. He got to the point that he couldn't talk anymore, but he had one of these things that he could blow into and make words. And the day he died, Sandy and I went to see him. And the last thing he ever said on that thing was, "I want to go home. I don't mean my earthly home." He blew that into that, and the words came up on that screen. He was in so much agony. So that's what Al said, it's incomprehensible what he went through. I believe that his pain was more, it was not physical pain as much as it was mental pain because of the sins, because the body has a way of shutting down when you reach a certain point of pain. It shuts down. And additional pain at that point doesn't matter. But the mental part never shuts down. That movie, The Passion. showed probably as well as anything that ever, the agony of his physical torture.
Yeah,
You know, you saw hardened, grown people coming out of that theater crying.
oh, Lord, yeah. Yeah.
But it didn't last long. It's another one of those foxhole type things. It happened while it was going on. It was, you know, as soon as it was over, we're back to our regular routine.
Yes, brother.
We had a wonderful friend, Dr. Sidney Sweet, who was raised Hindu in Trinidad. Brilliant man, had become a Christian. And we went with him and his wife to see that movie down in Florida. And he said, I think that the brutality they demonstrated was excessive. I said, Dr. Sweet, the Bible said his visage was marred more than that of any man. We can't show it, because no other man would have still been breathing to go through what he went through.
That's one of the reasons I think that he died so quickly too, because his body was almost at the point of death when they crucified him. He couldn't even carry the cross, you know. And that's just one part, just the beam cross is the only thing he was carrying, not the entire cross, just the beam. So we had to find somebody to carry it for him.
And, you know, a wonderful part of that story is, I've read that it's very likely that Simon the Cyrene was a black man.
Some occasions of the geography would make it that way, yeah.
Well, there's a lot to think about. The beautiful part is we know that he rose from the dead. Praise the Lord for that. And we feel him witnessing to us today and every day. Prayer request. Let's move to our prayer request as we close out.